West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est long, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
GOP leadership refuses to denounce Trump. This is still the party of Trump. House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy making that crystal clear, dodging and twisting on questions about his phone call with Trump during the riot.
I was the first person to contact him when the riots was going on. He didn't see it. What he ended the call was telling me he'll put something out to make sure to stop this. And that's what he did. He put a video out later.
Quite a lot later. And it was a pretty weak video. But I'm asking you specifically, did he say to you, I guess some people are more concerned about the election than you are?
No, listen, my conversations with the president are my conversations with the president. I engaged in the idea of making sure we could stop what was going on inside the Capitol at that moment in time, and the president said he would help.
That is an altogether different tune from Leader McCarthy, like not even a track on the same album. Here's what he said in the wake of the January 6th Capitol riots.
Would you personally reach out to the president for more support?
I've already talked to the president. I called him. I think we need to make a statement, make sure that we can calm individuals down.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters. He should have immediately denounced the mob when he saw what was unfolding.
But did you or did you not support Donald Trump's effort to overturn the election in Congress?
Didn't we just answer this the first time you asked it?
Joining me now, writer and editor for MSNBC Daily, Hayes Brown, and Christina Greer, Associate Professor of Political Science at Fordham University. You know, Hayes, McCarthy's comments part of a broader effort by Republicans to rewrite what happened on January 6th, the role the former president played, the responsibility he should bear. What, though, does McCarthy gain from carrying Trump's water? I mean, is this anything more than a survival tactic?
No, he gets to keep the speakership. I mean, or eventually he hopes to become Speaker of the House someday if the Republicans take back the House of Representatives. That's what he's hoping for. He hopes to not lose his job as minority leader by essentially following. He is following the trend. At no point has he really led the Republicans. He has always been about being the person that they can push around the most and get the least pushback from. And so in not getting rid of Trump, him and other Republicans, especially in the House, especially the ones who don't really seem to buy into Trump's lies, the ones who are just kind of going along to get along, they are basically, they know they've been caught in this big lie. They just don't know how to extricate themselves from it without saying, by the way, we lied. There's no way out of it that does not involve some kind of mea culpa, some kind of admission that, yeah, we knew this was a lie. And until they figure out how to do that, or to take the plunge and face the voters and say, yes, this was not true, you should still reelect us because we believe in what you believe in. Until that happens, they are going to keep pushing this lie until they find a way out of this.
Dr. Greer, I spoke with Arizona Congressman Ruben Gallego about what is happening in his state. Take a listen.
This is a way for the Republicans to stage an issue so that way they could pass more voter suppression laws. This audit's a sham. Why would you hire anyone named Cyber Ninjas? And two, we actually aren't even clear who is totally paying for this.
Dr. Greer, connect the dots for us between what we're seeing in Arizona, the perpetuation of the big lie, the voter suppression bills we've seen across the country, including in Arizona, the anti-protest bills, and then what we are hearing from McCarthy and from others.
So here's the deal. So many Republicans are still running scared because they don't know what Donald Trump plans to do in 2024. And they also know that, he still has quite a powerful bully pulpit with primary voters within the party. And so there are a few things happening. One, as Hayes said, they're just going to perpetuate a lie. But so many of their supporters actually don't care that they're perpetuating a lie. And they don't mind that they, say one thing in the morning, another thing in the afternoon, and something totally different in the evening. The issue is this. Republicans need/want to regain control of the House and or the Senate in 2022, but definitely 2024. But the electoral math for the presidency for them, if we still have the Electoral College moving forward, just doesn't look good for Republicans. So they know that the only way they can win is to cheat. We know that we had organizations like Fair Fight that were actually legally helping people of all stripes register to vote. And Republicans know that they don't have a winning strategy. They're behind on climate change. They're behind on immigration. They're behind on education. They're behind on any policy issue. They are not with the vast majority of Americans and public opinion on guns, on schools, you name it. They're not there. And so with Donald Trump looming large in the shadows, you have so many elected Republicans who will do anything to try and present to him on a silver platter something for 2024 because they don't know what he's going to do. And if he turns against them, which we have seen him do to members of his own party, it spells disaster for them. So we've never seen someone do this to members of their own party, really eating off of their own young and also members within.
Dr. Greer, I want to stick on that point because not to get lost in the mixer, you have Liz Cheney describing Biden's policies as even further left than he campaigned on. But if you look at our new polling, voters approve of much of what this president is doing. I'm not sure how persuasive that argument is either.
Well, here's the interesting thing, though. We have to always remember that for a lot of Republicans, they only care about their primary voters. Right? Because they know that if they can't get out of their primary, then it's done. And it's a short-sighted strategy because there's a Reuters poll that came out today that shows young Republicans across the country and Republican clubs across universities are saying, it's time to move on beyond Trump. You have to actually build a base and build a foundation within the Republican Party. And if you've got young people who believe in climate change and, they aren't climate deniers, they believe in the vaccine, and they also want to be strong Republicans, you can't have even more factions within the Republican Party because we've seen so many. It's just the Trump faction is the loudest and right now the strongest. But beyond primaries, the Republican Party really needs to figure out what they want to do with this faction if they want to survive as a party. Because you have a lot more independents, moderates, and weak-leaning Republicans who are saying, enough is enough. This is just blatant cheating. Where's the former president? He's not really saying or doing anything. The country actually was really divided under him racially and otherwise. So why don't we actually think about what Joe Biden is doing without this blind loyalty to Donald Trump and his version of the Republican Party?
Hayes, the fact that you have McCarthy changing his story about what transpired on January 6th, beyond the politics of it, I also think it begs a question about the need for a commission to study what happened on January 6th so that there is a historical and agreed upon record of what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. That's been something that Speaker Pelosi has been pushing for since January 6th, basically. But what we're seeing is pushback from Republicans who know that the findings will probably not be in their benefit. They know that a full cataloging of the lead up to and the day of the attack will not make them look good. It will not play well politically. It will not be, no one wants to be blamed for in the 9/11 Commission report, which is basically what we're trying to recreate here. We're trying to have a full set of facts, a full record of what happened on January 6th. And I'm not surprised that Republicans aren't for it, but I am disappointed that they aren't for it. I'm disappointed that they aren't taking this chance to lay it all on the table and say, okay, here's what happened. Here's what we need to do as a Republican moving forward to make sure that we can actually do right by this country and fight for our ideals. Like, I don't get why no one in Congress seemingly is for this, who is a member of the Republican Party. There are a few people like Liz Cheney and et cetera who really think that this is necessary, but they don't command the majority of their minority. And until they do that, until they can actually gather the will to say, no, we need to move on from Trump, that we're not going to see any changes on that front.
It is Tuesday, the 27th of April of 2021, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays, a small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. Speaking of spicy, we always work it in somehow, don't we? Yeah, speaking of which, that Arizona recount going on, first they bring in a bunch of pens to nullify votes. They get caught doing that because, well, let's be clear, a reporter fudged the rules and got in as an election observer. How dare they? Yeah. Apparently this is supposed to be a legal audit, though I don't know how. Hasn't that election already been certified? So they have these millions of ballots. Are they millions? Anyway, they have, access to them with pens to be able to mark up the ballots and apparently nullify them, and they got caught. And now they're going to court so that they can do it all in secret because you can't nullify ballots if everybody is watching. All right, that's pretty spicy now, isn't it? Will this audit have any legal impact? No, it's all for propaganda purposes so that the maggots have something to hang their red hats on. See, Arizona proved there was something going on there. Yeah, there was something going on there. It was called democracy until you guys came in and made it into fascism. Jeez. Yeah, I have still been involved in, a local imbroglio about what democracy is. The maggots here continue to insist that their votes don't count. We don't count their votes. And I keep telling them away, yes, we do, and you keep losing. How about changing your political platform from racism and misogyny and all the other isms that are really negatives in the construct of democracy? How about, getting rid of those and maybe joining the human race? No, they can't do that, because if they did that, well, then that would mean, appeasing the liberals, and you can't appease the liberals. So what better way to get back at the liberals? Well, just don't take the vaccine, because liberals hate that. Really. We hate it when you breathe air, too. All right? So you go ahead and do what you got to do to get back at us. What a bunch of dimwits. And then you have the heir to the Swanson TV dinner fortune, who obviously doesn't care about humanity. All you have to do is look at that lava-hot apple thing that they got in there. Do not touch that. Man, that's going to burn. It will blister. Don't go near it. So they don't care about humanity because they put that dollop of lava in your TV dinner. Here, have some of this hot lava. Tastes like apples, doesn't it? Well, you can still taste. So, of course, Tucker Carlson is going to tell people to go out there and yell at little kids and their parents for wearing masks, and to call the cops on the parents because they're abusing the kid by putting a mask on them. What if the kid has some sort of autoimmune disease, and they have to protect their immune system? What if they're getting chemotherapy, Tucker? So, as if we don't have enough problems with laws that allow people to drive through black protesters. If you drive a car through a Proud Boy demonstration, trust me, you're not going to get off. Oh, well, I was frightened by them, and I had to drive through them. No, the Proud Boys are working for the cops. Or an element of the cops that haven't been purged yet. Anyway, you're not going to get off on that. So, as if we don't have enough problems with that kind of law, You know, you got your stand your ground law where you can just shoot anybody for any reason as long as you say, I'm standing on my ground. Now you get to run over people during demonstrations with a stand on your gas pedal law because you were frightened by their presence. Just don't be frightened during Proud Boys and drive through them because, I mean, if you get arrested, because you'll probably get beat to a pulp and dead before then, but if you get arrested, you're not going to get off. You will be liable, criminally and civilly. We know how it works. You know, I kind of wish I could drive through these gender relief parties because those demonstrations frighten me the most. Boy, I gotta tell you, they'll blow up whole city blocks just to let you know what gender their kid is. It's a boy. Kaboom. Oh, okay, so then we also have this weird census. Yeah, I'm jumping around, but we do that sometimes. So we have the weird census that, I don't know, do we take it as fact? When every step of the way the Trump administration sabotaged it, delayed it, put it through court cases that they lost also. But now we're supposed to believe that somehow all the Democratic states lost votes or lost representation and all the Republican states gained them. Are you freaking kidding me? We're supposed to take that at face value and go, oh, well, you know, we're just going to have to live with it just like we did when Trump got put in by Vlad. Look where we are now. They didn't get their way and they tried to overthrow the government with a violent insurrection. I don't know what to do about the census. It's something that's done every 10 years. I know that there were some bad censuses before FDR took over. And but they still had to live with them for 10 years. Is this what we have to contend with? Sabotage of representative democracy and the very structure of America in every aspect, and we're just supposed to live with it? You know, in other constructs, there would be a civil asset forfeiture for crimes committed, especially assets that have been gained unlawfully, like SCOTUS seats, a bad census, etc., etc., etc. Why aren't those put into receivership like all the other property crimes that get committed? My God. Why don't we just follow the law that we already have on the books? We could. So good on Merrick Garland. Yeah, he's going to purge white supremacists. You know, I like to call them Nazis for short. But anyway, looking to get them out of ICE, DHS, law enforcement generally. It's going to be a hard road to hoe because, well, let's be clear, white supremacy was a reason for law enforcement to begin with. But let's not quibble too much here. We are an evolving nation. Nothing is set in stone. Look, we can have good cops. They don't have to be, you know, fumblers like Barney Fife. You don't have to be Keystone cops, but you could be competent without being, you know, dicks and racists. You know, that would be nice, wouldn't it? So, yeah, we have a problem within, you know, our whole government. We have a lot of Nazi white supremacists embedded, and they've been there for a while, and they are emboldened, and they're not going to quit. You know, another thing came up that I was curious about, too. Now, just because we hear things more often doesn't necessarily mean they're happening more. It just means that we hear about them. We're knowing about them more. But the incidences may not necessarily have increased, just our awareness. But it seems that, boy, there's a lot of cop killings after this. Well, I mean, cops killing people after the Chauvin verdict was handed down. Now, it could be that, you know, it's just newsworthy stuff about cops killing people because of the Chauvin verdict coming down, and that may be why it only seems that cops are killing people more. But I'd be curious about if there has been an uptick, because it seems like get back to me. It really does, because if there's a thin blue line and they all belong to a gang, because you can tell by the colors they wear, they're going to be protecting the members of their gang. That's how you can tell they're a family with a capital F. Speaking of family, I was briefly suspended from Facebook yesterday for bullying and harassing pandemic-denying maggots who insisted that January 6th was only a trial run, and you just wait, commie. And if I ever see you in public, I was getting, pretty much threatened in a public forum on Facebook that they're going to kick my ass if they ever see me in public, but somehow I'm the bully for calling them insurgents because they're calling for an insurgency. Yeah, and Facebook said, you violated community standards for harassing and bullying. I'm all, look, they're the ones that are like threatening me with physical violence. They're the ones that say that they're going to have another violent overthrow of the government. All I said, were they expecting a call from the FBI? And that was what they reported me for bullying. And I contested it, and fortunately, this time, I think a human being might have seen it, my complaint, my retort, because they did come back and say, oops, sorry, we got it wrong. We'll put your comment back up, and your 24-hour suspension has been lifted, which, I got to tell you, all of last year, I was suspended for over half of last year from Facebook by maggots. Yeah, insurgents. They gamed the algorithm, and no matter what you did, you couldn't contest it. They just said, nope, you're done. And so I would be suspended for a month at a time. We're suspending you for 24 hours, then the 24 hours would be up, and then you go, oh, we got to suspend you for a month because we've had too many complaints about you. Yeah, from anti-American insurgents. Come on, get a clue. So fortunately, I think actually a human being might have seen my protest to being suspended, and they put me back. So that was interesting. Maybe I'm not going to engage these usual suspects because they have come back out of the woodwork. They disappeared for a bit, and now they're back with a vengeance, with their whole anti-pandemic rigmarole. The vaccine is dangerous, etc., etc., etc. And we're all commies, and they're going to make sure that their votes count this time. And only their votes. So we got that going for us, which is nice. What are we going to do about it? Well, I guess we just continue registering people to vote and get out there and they're going to cheat. They cheated in 2016 when Trump got installed. We had to live with it. What did we do? We just registered more people to vote. Now they're putting up even more roadblocks. Do you think that's going to stop people? Do you really? Republican Nazis? It's not going to happen. This is America. Indeed. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? Well, of course, Kevin McCarthy defends Trump because he's totally fearful of the dude. I don't know why. I don't think that Trump has that much dirt. Well, of course he does. He's got a lot of dirt on people. That's how he keeps them in line. He blackmails them. And now that he has the full weight of Vlad, plus what he was able to glean from being the leader of the free world and all the secrets that he had access to, yeah, I think Kevin McCarthy is really afraid. I don't know what salacious behavior he's endeavored in, but he is afraid of Donald Trump. What's on the rest of the menu? Here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, an Idaho bill to prohibit mask mandates died in the state Senate. Yeah, it passed overwhelmingly in the House, but in the Senate, and that's a Republican state, too, as you know. The Biden administration is expanding the summer food program for 34 million school children because they get hungry during the summer when they're not in school. And Republicans think they'll win back the House by attacking Nancy Pelosi again. Yeah. What's the definition of crazy again? Doing the same thing over and over and over, hoping that this time is going to be different? Okay, keep it up, crazy. And after the break, we move to the chef's table, where an Iranian-British woman held for 5 years in a Tehran prison for a 2009 protest in front of the Iranian embassy in London has had another year added to her sentence. How nice. And one of Australia's most senior security officials warned liberal democracies that the drums of war are beating. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. Bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is that chat room link, and that chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln. Thank you, Kelly. To the left of that chat room link, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will notice that link to our Patreon page. If you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio and possibly send us the equivalent of maybe what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink once a month, if you could send those funds our way, we stretch those dollars beyond compare. We pay our bills, we fly under the radar, and we continue resisting as we have for the last 10 years, a whole decade of continuous 24/7, 365 resistance radio with a little bit of music and art and other things thrown in for good measure. Indeed. 10 years. Yes, it's our 10th year anniversary this year, and we're so happy that we are able to do what we do because of the help that we have gotten from you. And we'd like to continue doing this, and so I guess we need help continuously. What is it about all of that? Anyway, we have been paying our bills, and we have you to thank for, well, allowing us to do that so we can fly under the radar, so we can continue resisting, as the founders originally intended, oh so many years ago. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, do so at Netroots Radio. Tom takes care of that. Thank you, Tom. I, of course, take care of me, and I am at Justice Putnam on Twitter. That's just me. That's not made up. That's really me. Follow me there, because I do post the show notes and links diary on Daily Co's about 10 minutes before showtime, and then I get that linked up on Twitter, so you can link back to the Daily Co's article and get those links, because that's where the real reportage is. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. Okay, let's dig into Idaho, because I think I got kind of busy, so I wasn't able to follow David's show as much today, and presumably Joan is off. So I figured why not have an Idaho story in honor of Joan. Anyway, Keith Riddler of the Associated Press does bring us this first offering in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Legislation approved by lawmakers in the House prohibiting mask mandates by government entities in Idaho won't get a hearing in the Senate, the powerful chairman of the Senate Health and Welfare Committee said yesterday, Monday. Republican Senator Fred Martin said that the committee is no longer meeting at this late date in the legislative session. He also said that he has no plans to call it back to review or for review and debate on the mask mandate ban bill or any other bill. We shut down the committee several weeks ago, so we are not hearing any additional bills, Martin said. He declined to unilaterally say that the bill is dead, but bills that don't get committee hearings won't advance and are considered dead. Committee chairmen have significant power over what bills they choose to hold hearings on or let die with no hearing at all. Supporters of the bill said requiring masks violates personal rights. Contradicting public health experts, Republican Representative Carrie Hanks said during debate in the House side that she has information that found masks are ineffective in preventing disease. Guess what? That study is being retracted from the wacko journal it was published in the first place. It was so wacko of an article that the wacko journal is redacting or is pulling it out of publication. So please, lady. She also said that some victims of sexual violence find wearing masks to be traumatic if they have their faces covered while being assaulted. Really? You're going to go with that? So I suppose nobody goes to a doctor or a nurse? The bill's opponent said mask mandates are a local issue that should be decided by locally elected officials and that the masks effectively prevent the spread of the coronavirus. Republican Governor Brad Little never imposed a statewide mask mandate, but some counties and about a dozen cities have during the pandemic. Martin, commenting on the merits of the bill, said he's uncomfortable imposing a state law that gets between voters and their immediate representatives. I don't like the federal government telling me as a state senator what we should be doing, he said. So I don't like us telling the cities, the counties, the school districts what to do unless it's something they're coming for us to make changes for. Martin said he was also troubled that the proposed law banned courts, a separate branch of Idaho government, from imposing mask mandates. I'm not sure we have or should have the authority to be telling the courts what to do, Martin said. About 186,000 Idaho residents have been sickened by the coronavirus and more than 2,000 have died. About 445,000 state residents are fully vaccinated, and about 140,000 have received the first dose of the vaccines requiring 2 doses. This year's legislative session has lasted more than 100 days, making it the third longest in state history. Martin cited that as another reason why he was reluctant to keep it going any longer. I feel like we're a bunch of junior high school boys out after midnight, and nothing of good comes of that, he said. It's time to go home. Josh Bullock of the Associated Press brings us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Biden administration is expanding a program to feed as many as 34 million school children during the summer months, using funds from the coronavirus relief package approved in March. The Agriculture Department is announced that it will continue through the summer a payments program that replaced school meals because the pandemic left many children with virtual classes. Families of eligible children would receive $6.82 per child for each weekday. That adds up to $375 per child over the summer months. Agriculture Secretary Tom Vislak called the summer benefits a first-of-its-kind, game-changing intervention to reduce child hunger in the United States. The program reflects the Biden administration's attempts to nearly stamp out child poverty, an unprecedented push with money for parents, child care centers, and schools that could revamp the social safety net. Conservative critics have warned that the spending, if made permanent, would undermine the willingness of poorer Americans to work, and that's a crock. You know what prevents Americans from working? CEO pay, please. Stop paying them and get them to work, maybe, huh? Stacey Dean, Undersecretary for Food, Nutrition, and Consumer Services at Ag, said that Congress previously approved limited funding for pilot programs to test the effectiveness of the payments, but the coronavirus relief package allowed it to be rolled out nationwide. Besides the food aid, the relief package allowed parents to receive roughly $250 a month starting in July for each child between ages 6 and 17. Qualifying families with a child under 6 would receive $300 monthly. The payments are part of an enhanced child tax credit that would expire at the end of this year, according to the terms of the most recent coronavirus relief package. Yeah, the conservatives will whine about that while they're buying more yachts. Please now, please. President Joe Biden plans to extend the monthly payments through 2025. The extension would be part of a multi-trillion-dollar plan that he intends to announce on Wednesday tomorrow in a joint address to Congress. It's not a State of the Union because he just started. Democratic lawmakers have called for making the enhanced tax credit permanent, with Senators Michael Bennet, Sherrod Brown, Cory Booker, Representatives Rosa DeLauro, Susan DelBene, and Richie Torres issuing a statement last week. When the school year ends, children have traditionally shifted to other forms of food aid, such as SNAP, yet administration officials said that summer feeding programs tend to reach less than 20% of the numbers served during the school year. Children could qualify for the new summer benefit if they are eligible to receive free or reduced price meals during the school year, or if they are under the age of 6 and live in a SNAP household. Children already on SNAP would get the benefits as a supplement to what they are already receiving. Singer of the American Independent brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. House Republicans are giddy about their chances of winning back control of the House in the 2022 elections, in part because they believe House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is unpopular and they can run against her again in next November's midterms. Now, that was according to a report by Politico. Now, according to the report, Representative Tom Emmer, a Republican from Minnesota who chairs the National Republican Congressional Committee that works to elect Republicans to the House, circulated a memo yesterday, Monday, that said GOP polling found Pelosi as the most unpopular elected official in the country, and that Democrats in these districts are going to have an uphill battle defending their decisions to vote in lockstep with Pelosi's socialist agenda. There they go, with the socialism again. What is it about these Nazis? Huh? Stu Rothenberg, a longtime political analyst, called the memo nothing but spin. What this memo smells like is a political people at the NRCC got it in their brains that we got to create some momentum here for this election. So we'll get pollsters to write up a memo about how great things are, Rothenberg told the American Independent Foundation. He added, they've got Nancy Pelosi on the brain here. But the reality is that 2022 midterms is likely to be about Joe Biden. And I'd have to see some numbers that would really blow my mind to think that running against Nancy Pelosi would be more effective than running against Joe Biden. To be sure, Republicans do have a good shot at winning back control of the House in 2022. However, that's in large part because historical data shows that the party in the White House often loses seats in midterm elections. On top of that, Republicans will have more control over the decennial redistricting process this cycle as they dominate state legislatures, and they could gain an advantage simply by redrawing House districts that are more favorable to Republican candidates, which could flip the balance of power. Given that Democrats currently hold just a 222 to 212 majority, even slight gerrymandering changes could flip control of the House. However, Rothenberg said that has nothing to do with Pelosi, saying this memo looks to be more about helping excite Republican donors to give money rather than a serious look at the state of play in the 2022 midterms. What's more, Republicans have now run an anti-Pelosi strategy twice in the past two cycles, in both 2018 and 2020, and it failed both times. As of April of 2018, Pelosi had appeared in roughly one-third of GOP attack ads. Democrats went on to retake the House that year in a wave election, ousting Republicans from power for the first time since 2010. Now, Republicans ran similar ads in 2020, tying Democrats to Pelosi and the left. Republicans picked up seats, but Democrats still maintained their majority, and Pelosi kept her speaker gavel. Meanwhile, despite what the Republican memo says, Pelosi is not the most unpopular political leader, according to public polling. Pelosi has an average favorability of 39%. That's far higher than Mitch McConnell's 25.5% approval rating. But the 2022 midterm elections are a long way away, and Rothenberg said that Republicans planning now to win based on Pelosi's polling is premature. It's true, the Republicans, based on historical trends, should be poised to make at least small gains in the House and maybe pick up a Senate seat or two, and that would change Joe Biden's second 2 years of his term dramatically, even if the changes are small, Rothenberg said, but it's not because of Nancy Pelosi. Now, I might argue that we won't do so badly in these midterms because Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi are legislating our representative democracy as if they are Americans, not some toady to some hostile foreign power. All right, let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
Hi, and welcome to COVID Quickly, a Scientific American podcast series.
This is your Fast Track update. On the COVID pandemic, we bring you up to speed on the science behind the most urgent questions about the virus and the disease. We demystify the research and we help you understand what it really means.
I'm Tanya Lewis.
And I'm Josh Fishman.
And we're Scientific American's senior health editors. Today, we're going to be talking about why COVID vaccines seem safe for pregnancy,
and the rarity of blood clots with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine,
and the first strong data showing that COVID still hurts many people months after they first got sick. Parents-to-be have worried about the safety of COVID vaccines for pregnancy. Josh, this week there's some reassurance, right?
Yes, there's some good news. A study of about 35,000 pregnant women done from December 2020 through February of this year found that they reported no extra problems. They had the same levels of side effects that non-pregnant women had: soreness in the arms where they got the shot, fatigue, and headaches. A small group of these women, just about 800 of them, finished their pregnancies during the study. And again, the results paralleled the general population. 86% of the pregnancies resulted in live births. Rates of miscarriage, birth defects, preemie births, and low birth weights were very close to what women experienced before the pandemic hit us. Now, there are some limits to this research, which came out this week in the New England Journal of Medicine. People volunteered to report their conditions to a federal government website, so maybe those with serious problems were not among the volunteers. In several months, a broader look at actual medical records could give a more complete picture. Still, before this, we really didn't know anything about the safety of these vaccines in pregnancy. Now we do, and expecting parents can feel better about getting their shots. Last week, U.S. health agencies recommended a pause on the use of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine because of several extremely rare reports of blood clots. What's going on with that?
Well, only 6 people had this condition out of about 7 million, so the risk of it happening is extremely rare. But the CDC and FDA made the decision to pause vaccinations out of an abundance of caution. These blood clots aren't quite like normal blood clots, though. They seem to occur in combination with low numbers of platelets, the parts of blood involved in clotting. While blood clots themselves are quite common, this particular combination of symptoms is very rare. It resembles a condition known as heparin-induced thrombotic thrombocytopenia, which occurs occasionally with the blood thinner heparin. Another vaccine, made by AstraZeneca, has been linked to this rare blood clotting condition in a very small number of individuals in Europe, leading to a similar pause there. Both vaccines are made with adenoviruses, so it's possible there's a similar mechanism at play. Scientists have cautioned that the risk of these clots is still extremely low, especially compared with the risk from COVID.
Is holding off going to increase vaccine hesitancy among some people?
Some critics think so, but other scientists say this is exactly how the system is supposed to work, that by taking these rare events seriously, the CDC and FDA are cultivating more trust with Americans. There's another argument for the pause. It notifies doctors to look out for these patients with these rare reactions, so they can be treated. The signs of blood clots are things like an extremely persistent headache, abdominal pain, leg pain, or shortness of breath within 1 to 2 weeks of vaccination. Also, there's evidence that the normal treatment for these clots, a blood thinner like heparin, may actually make it worse. There are other treatments doctors should give instead. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines haven't been linked to clots. For Johnson & Johnson, a CDC advisory committee is set to meet today to discuss the pause. They may decide to lift the pause and possibly issue a warning about the clots, as Europe has done, or they may extend the pause until they have more data. For the past year, we've heard a few stories about COVID long haulers, people struggling months after their initial bout of COVID. But this week, we got some strong evidence showing just how serious this is, right?
Yes. We have data drawn from more than 70,000 COVID patients, followed for 6 months after their initial illness. Some of these people remain really sick. This isn't a bunch of anecdotes. This is a strong pattern, and it can be deadly, too. The patients were all in the Veterans Administration health system, so they have detailed records. Compared with non-COVID patients, they had a 59% higher risk of death during those 6 months. A whole slew of medical problems cropped up during that time. Heart attacks, respiratory failure, diabetes, neurological problems, anxiety, and more. These patients kept showing up in doctors' offices and used more medications. There was also a higher rate of opioid use. Not everyone runs into these problems, but they're real. And here's a striking comparison. You know how people say, oh, COVID is just like a flu? No, it's worse. The data published this week in the journal Nature compared COVID patients to flu patients. The flu patients had lower levels of all the illnesses I just mentioned, and COVID patients were more likely to die during that half year. About 50% more likely. For some patients, the initial infection isn't the end of their problems.
Now you're up to speed. Thanks for joining us.
Come back in 2 weeks for the next episode of COVID Quickly, and check out Siam.com for updated and in-depth COVID news.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we our resistance radio.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1978. That was the day a West Virginia cooling tower under construction collapsed, plunging 51 workers to their deaths. It was considered the worst non-mining disaster in West Virginia history. It's also the worst accident in the history of the country's construction industry. Cooling towers were under construction at the Pleasance Power Plant at Willow Island. Union building tradesmen built up the walls of the tower from scaffolding bolted to it. As each section was poured, the forms would be removed and the scaffolding raised and bolted to the new section. The tower had reached about 168 feet when the previous day's concrete walls began to peel away from the tower. The scaffolding plummeted, as did the workers. Many could only be identified by the contents of their wallet. The Steele family was beyond devastated with the loss of 10 family members. In a 2008 retrospective by Ken Ward Jr. of the Charleston Gazette reported, quote, "A mix of safety lapses combined to bring the tower crashing down. Concrete in the previous day's lift hadn't hardened enough to hold the scaffolding. Key bolts meant to attach the scaffolding to the tower were missing. An elaborate concrete hoisting system was modified without proper engineering review. Contractors were rushing to speed construction." Dr. Celeste Monfortin of the Milken Institute School of Public Health noted that the case highlights still relevant issues: inadequate OSHA penalties, no criminal sanctions, holding workers responsible for contractors' mistakes, ignoring of previous warning signs, and a disconnect between abstract calculations and real-world applications. Ken Ward Jr. noted in his retrospective that in 2008, there was still no state public employee OSHA program in West Virginia. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Expecting to be a bit warmer than yesterday, and it was pretty chilly yesterday. Barely got above 60. In fact, it stayed mostly in the upper to mid-50s and got much cooler last night, as you can tell. Sunshine and clouds mixed today, highs around 72 or so. Winds light and variable. Overnight lows in only the low 40s. That's good. Partly cloudy skies, winds remaining light and variable. And sunshine and clouds mixed tomorrow with a high in the low 80s. Winds light and variable. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon stands at the totals that we had yesterday. Apparently, we don't have updated totals from the weekend until later on today. The number from the weekend, not updated since late Friday, now stands at 10,186 with 129 deceased. Grass pollen is rated as high outside the window here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is good at 28 parts per million, and that daytime UV index remains high at its current level of 7, which was a record yesterday for the area for this time of year. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.16 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles. And relative humidity is at 99%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that are crowdsources from around the world. London is 62 and fair. Paris is 67 and sunny. Rome is 66 and mostly cloudy. Kyiv is 48 and fair. Kabul is 70 and mostly cloudy. Hong Kong is 71 and cloudy. Tokyo is 62 and clear. Sydney, Australia is 62 and mostly cloudy. San Francisco, California is 50 degrees and sunny. And New York is 55 degrees Fahrenheit and cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that our crowd crowdsources from around the world. John Gambrell of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. An Iranian-British woman long held in Tehran has been sentenced to another year in prison, drawing immediate criticism from Britain in the high-profile case that has prompted international condemnation of Iran. Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe has already served a 5-year prison sentence in the Islamic Republic. Her new sentence comes amid ongoing negotiations in Vienna over Iran's tattered nuclear deal with world powers, and as Tehran seeks hundreds of millions of dollars from Britain from a decades-old arms deal. Her lawyer told the AP that she received the second sentence on a charge of spreading propaganda against the system for participating in a protest in front of the Iranian embassy in London in 2009. State media in Iran did not immediately acknowledge the sentence, apparently issued after yet another closed-door hearing in her case. Her husband, Richard Ratcliffe, told the AP that her lawyer planned to file an appeal.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Reuters staff brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. One of Australia's most senior security officials has said liberal democracies must brace for war while searching for peace amid elevated global tensions. Home Affairs Department Secretary Mike Pezzullo said the possibility of war was increasing. Today, as free nations again hear the beating drums and watch worryingly the militarization of issues that we had, until recent years, thought unlikely to be catalysts for war, let us continue to search unceasingly for the chance for peace while bracing again for the curse of war, Pezzullo said in a letter to staff on Anzac Day, which honors the country's war dead. Pezzullo did not specify the catalyst for his warning, but it follows a sharp deterioration in Australia's relationship with China and a rise in regional tensions over Taiwan. Australian Defence Minister Peter Dutton said that a conflict involving China over Taiwan should not be discounted. Australia's opposition Labour Party criticized Pezzullo's comments. I think that is pretty hyper-excited language, and I am not sure our senior public officials should be using that language, Labour Party lawmaker Bill Shorten told Australia's Channel 9. China claims Taiwan as its own territory and has never renounced the use of force to bring the island under Beijing's control. Chinese Foreign Minister spokesman Wang Wenbin said he hoped Australia was aware of the sensitive nature of the issue and could avoid sending any wrong signal to Taiwan independence forces. Indeed. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.